Good morning, everybody. Hello, my name is Rob Webster. I'm the Chief Exec of NHS West Yorkshire, and I'm privileged to co-chair this board with the Mayor Tracy Brabin. She's slightly delayed, and we'll start the meeting without. She'll join us very shortly. We're being live streamed today, so welcome to anybody who is here. Everybody in the room has a nameplate. I'm not going to propose that we go around now and introduce everybody, but if you do contribute in the meeting, please do say who you are for those who are watching. They may not be aware and may not be able to see your nameplates on the screen. We've got quite a full agenda today, so I'm going to try and keep us on track. I do have to leave at 11 o'clock sharp to run an all-staff briefing for my organisation, so if we are slightly overrunning, then I'll ask the Mayor to finish the meeting off for us, but I'm hoping I can get everybody out of the door by the deadline. Thank you for all your contributions on that. Let's start with apologies. Miles, have we got anybody, any apologies to note today?
Apologies for absence, Chair, have been received from Lorraine Jackson, Professor Nadira Mirza, Mandy Ridyard, Professor John Wright, and then Paula Varley with Lindsay Ellis kindly attending as her substitute.
Thank you for those. In terms of expressions of and declarations of interest, does anybody have any pecuniary interest that they want to disclose at this point in the meeting? Welcome, we're just starting. It's okay. It's okay. Okay, so there's no additional interest that anyone wants to declare based on the agenda for today. I can also confirm there are items on the agenda that require the exclusion of the press and the public, so we are meeting in public. In terms of transparency and openness, it's really important that we have a clear and accurate set of minutes. So can I just check that people are content with the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of September? And that they're an accurate record, so people are content to confirm that. Any amendments that anyone wants to make? Any matters arising not on the agenda? Okay, great stuff, thank you. So we're going to now get into the morning chair and co-chair updates. For those coming late, don't worry, we're just starting the meeting. Welcome. Oh, yes, it's good we're in the right building to give direct feedback on that, aren't we? Okay, so in terms of the general update for today, I'm just going to give a bit of context and indicate the kind of shape of the meeting this morning. So welcome to this meeting. It is good that we've got this powerful group of people around the table to really push on this agenda. It is critical to the health and lives of local people. We know that good jobs and good work lead to good health. There's a direct correlation between them. This is in the context where there are some significant changes happening in local government with the devolution bill and in the NHS with the 10-year plan and the government's health missions. Just to confirm that you may have seen in the media and elsewhere news of changes in the health service. So the integrated care boards, which I lead, for example, in West Yorkshire, are going through a significant change with reductions in staffing, aligned to a refocusing on strategic commissioning. And we're in the middle of a staff consultation on those changes at the moment. Welcome, Tracy.
Good morning, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We're in the middle of a consultation on those changes. I can confirm that this work remains fundamental to the work of the Integrated Care Board. The posts that are required to support it are in that consultation, so they continue subject to consultation, and our commitment to this work is clear. It also fits very squarely with the wider agenda within government around the well-being and health of the population, including given new powers and responsibilities to the Mayor for the public's health. So we are in the middle of that work. That organisational change involves quite a significant change for a number of people, but that shouldn't deflect us from the importance of this work and our commitment to it. In terms of today, there are a number of papers which give us an update of how the programme's doing and the context that we're in. These reforms that we're engaged in, are all part of that government's health mission around the public's health, employment and wider determinants. And the publication of the Get Britain Working reforms really at the heart of that. We'll hear progress under item 6 around progress on healthy working lives, and then all of the different arrangements that feed into that. Morning, Susan. And we'll make sure that the acceleration and continued importance of this work is something that we collectively shape in West Yorkshire. The establishment of this group and I think the work programmes is really helpful in delivering change for local people, which is the critical thing that we want to do, and also helping us to shape and inform national policy. The pilots that we've been doing directly feed back into the reinforcement of the work and how it needs to progress. You can see that in the reforms led by Sir Charlie Mayfield. You can see that in Alan Milburn's review into the root causes of the rise in economic inactivity among young residents. And let's remember, in Bradford, we've got one of the youngest cities in the country, if not the youngest, I think. So it's critically important for us to engage with, learn from and shape those pieces of work. And then we'll hear a bit later on around Workwell, which is an early intervention health-led service, which tries to ensure that people don't leave work, remain in work, and we know that if we can keep people in work, their life chances and the life chances of their families are enhanced. So this kind of work and this central drive with central government through different departments driving improvements needs to be coordinated somewhere, and this is the place for us, I think. And we can, using our really deep-rooted collaborative intent, make a much bigger difference together. That requires us, I think, to be, open, honest, and challenging of each other around what the issues are, and also challenging of the progress that we're making. And from the agenda you see today, I think you can see that we are making some genuine progress. And I think that progress has helped giving confidence to the government and others that we should continue down this path. So those bits of the jigsaw in the room, local authorities, sharing perspectives today around what's going on in places like Bradford and Wakefield. We've got board members representing different organisations that have a role to play. And this kind of work, I would say, is the sort of work that gets people out of bed because they can see the difference that it's making to the communities in which they live and work. Jen's going to give us an update on Workwell and some major national developments there. And we've really got an opportunity today to review the employment support within the region as we try and embed this work in how we work together. We've also really got a chance round the table to understand and shape the work we're doing on young lives and youth unemployment. So those are all the introductory remarks I wanted to make. Tracy, anything you wanted to add as a co-chair?
Thank you so much, Rob, and thank you for that introduction. And you're absolutely right that this is an incredible opportunity, given the government really want to solve the problem with opportunities for funding. But I think that system-wide approach where we can all work in partnership with these different opportunities, where we're not duplicating, where we're not missing people out, where we can really have that inclusive growth. And I was really excited to be at the Mayor's Innovation Day in Manchester this week with Charlie Mayfield, Alan Milburn, Andy Haldane, all the mayors, and lots of clever people. And we were being spoken about as innovators in this space, and being able to also take evidence from Alan Milburn's review, particularly around young people who are not in education, employment or training, and to be able to invite them to come and see what's happening in Bradford, for example, where we have a really low percentage of NEETs, but we also have high graduate unemployment. So it's many and varied, the challenges, but I think the ability to work cross-region and to demand of government that they give us the resources to do that, and they share the risk with us, because this is not risk-free. But we can't keep doing what we've been doing because too many people are slipping through the net. And I think it's 100,000 people potentially lost to the system if we were to be level with the national average of those in employment. We can't fail those 100,000 people. And also, as the Mayor, it's about growth as well and the economy. So it's really important to our economy that we do this work brilliantly. So just wanted to thank you. But if I could just, while I have the floor, Chair, just to say this might be your last in public event, is it, Rob?
It might be.
In public.
Yeah.
I just want to, if I may, just to say thank you for your leadership. And I've learned so much from you about what leadership looks like in compassionate leadership, your appetite for risk, and also the way that you've given us the resources and lent into it for us to deliver. So I think we all have learnt from you, and you know, this is not the end of you, I know, but I just wanted to put it on record that I am enormously grateful for your leadership, and we definitely would not be all sat around this table with this approach and with this ambition without your leadership. So thank you for that. So that's all my update. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Tracy. Let's move on to reporting then. So Anna, I think you're going to give us an update on the Healthy Working Life programme.
Good morning everyone, I'm Anna Myers, I'm the Inclusive Economy Manager here at the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. So just introducing item 6 around district reporting. So this paper gives an overview of the Healthy Working Life programme, and it sets the context for the delivery updates that each local authority are going to present shortly this morning. The board is asked to acknowledge the progress achieved to date on the Healthy Working Life programme and provide comments and guidance on current progress, and particularly around the design and delivery of programmes and the implementation of support within local areas across the region. So while accountability, as you're aware, sits at regional level, there's lots of flexibility locally, and we're keen to share updates today in this board meeting, so we can tell the story about the progress today. As the paper outlines, the Healthy Working Life programme is making a lot of good progress in supporting people who are economically inactive or at risk of becoming inactive, and helping them move towards access or stay in good quality work. There is a dashboard, and I know there's some accompanying slides. I'm not sure if someone's going to be presenting those today, but within that information, key achievements since April 2025 show, you know, a significant amount of consultation has happened to get to this point, mobilisation and delivery to be able to get the programme up and running to this position where we're at now. So that includes regional and local procurement that's happened at pace, you know, on such a huge scale, and you know, not something I've seen before in my time working here at the Combined Authority, so things have definitely moved quickly. And we've also got some really excellent case studies from partners and local organisations, and I think some of these will feature today in local areas updates, so great to see kind of those good news stories coming through as well. In terms of headline progress today, to share some key stats, there's 7,895 people that have been supported across Healthy Working Life so far. Just in terms of the elements of that, through Employment West Yorkshire, more than 5,200 people have been supported, with almost 600 of those moving into work, and that's 53% of the people who've completed support. Also through our Trailblazer work with the voluntary community sector partners, and we've seen over 550 people being supported, and that was since October. So, you know, that's quite a short amount of time, you know, to be able to mobilise and bring that up to speed to where it needs to be. And that's included a lot of local procurement and processes at pace to be able to get to this point. Also, in terms of the accelerator, we're seeing really strong results. So 96% of people completing the support are maintaining or improving their employment status, and that's focusing on, you know, maintaining employment and making sure that people are supported to stay in the labour market and preventing them becoming economically inactive. So I think, just some highlights there, but I think those achievements kind of show the increased capacity across the system. I think it's been recognised within this board previously, that sometimes the short-term nature of the funding streams continues to be a challenge, and it does remain a risk to the wider work and health landscape. And I just thought that was something to recognise after providing those stats. As well as the stats and the numbers, the people who've been supported, there's lots of key milestones in terms of system leadership as well, and that was a commitment that was made as part of the Healthy Working Life programme. So just to, I suppose, celebrate some of those key achievements, we've published the West Yorkshire Work and Health Plan. There's the Healthy Working Life Plan that's been developed and published. We've had 2 quite large-scale health and growth events, so bringing the system together and to be able to feed into the activity and to get to this point. The governance around it has been established, so now we've got this established Healthy Working Life Board, and there's also a programme board, and then in terms of marketing and comms, this was a commitment that we made to DWP, so we've got a marketing and comms planned around Healthy Working Life, so working across West Yorkshire Combined Authority and the Integrated Care Board to bring that together. And then I suppose coming soon, we've also developed an evaluation plan just to make sure that we can show that economic impact of the activity that's happening, and obviously review everything that's happening within the system. So in terms of next steps, that's a key milestone coming soon, and so evaluation activity will begin soon, and that will review the economic impact of healthy working life so far, as well as the progress against the 1,300 prevention outcome that the Healthy Working Life programme committed to, and it will also assess how the programme is helping to reduce economic inactivity by supporting more people with health conditions and disabilities to move or stay in work as part of the objective that was outlined within the Work and Health Plan. So I'll pause there, and I think we're moving on to pass over to colleagues to provide the place-based updates, and I believe that's in an alphabetical order. So I think we're starting with that.
Always good to go in alphabetical order. So I think we're struggling to get the slides up, I think, at the moment. Any questions for Anna before we get into the place-based arrangements, or any reflections that anyone's got? Right.
Thanks very much for that, Anna. If we can get these slides up, they would be good, because we are talking about how we evidence our delivery. Because when it was Alison McGovern, the minister, when we went to the Pathfinder at Wakefield, and the Perm Secretary was with her, and said, when I sit in front of the Select Committee, I need to know that you've made a difference. And unfortunately, even though we love devolution, I don't think devolution has permeated every particular department of government, and we will need to evidence the work that we've done and the impact and the differential that these many millions of pounds have made. So I did request this dashboard, and this is work in progress, but if we can't get it, it's no pressure, Miles, sorry about this. If we can't get it on the screen, we will then share it. It's currently, there's more detail. We need to go deeper to be able to share who, where, when, what. But this is the beginning. We have to start somewhere, because we have to understand what we're doing across West Yorkshire. So if we can't have it now for this item, let's return to this once we can get it up and running. But thank you very much, Anna. And when you say more activity than I've ever seen in the Combined Authority, how long have you been here?
I've been here 10 years.
Blimey, crikey. I mean, I don't know what skincare you're using, but you definitely don't look like you've been here 10 years. But thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Thanks. I've got a couple of people who want to come in, so we will get the slides and the dashboard up. It's good to see what we've heard in black and white, isn't it, or whatever colours we're going to end up with, right in front of us. And it's good. I think we've got some good numbers, some good indications of the progress. It'll be good to probe some of those. But Councillor Hinchcliffe, you wanted to come in, and then Fatima.
Yeah, I think just echoing what the Mayor said about delivery, I think the challenge for the region, of course, has also been the speed at which this has come, and we're having to mobilise so quickly across the region for quite a large-scale programme. Obviously, you need people in place, etc. So I think that makes delivery, challenging at pace. I think, obviously, now we've got this year 2 sorted out. Just the mechanics of it need sorting out. If we can get ahead of the game in terms of the agreements, draft agreements with all the local authorities, so we can get working on those, because we've got processes to go through as well, receiving money. So it's those boring bits, I'm afraid, we need to do really, really well, and then things can go faster. So just some expectation about when we're gonna get that, probably, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hinchcliffe, leader of Bradford Council. So just for those who weren't here at the beginning, in terms of the live stream, it'd be good just to introduce who you are. Fatima.
Thank you, co-chairs. Fatima Khan Shah, West Yorkshire Inclusivity Champion. It was just building on the points the Mayor's just made, which is we've obviously demonstrated proof of concept, which is wonderful. But I think to take it to the next level, there's something about demonstrating that we're not just hitting targets, but also achieving the point of this, which is reaching people most in need. And I suppose one of the things I'm particularly interested in is how are we demonstrating, despite subsidiarity and making it bespoke to the different boroughs of West Yorkshire, that we've got a consistent minimum offer. So, if people are accessing our services, what is the consistent offer that avoids the postcode lottery for the region? I think is really important to articulate, particularly to support, the selection committees and future decision making. And I suppose the other bit which is really, really important is that, we hear a lot of conversations about integration. This is a fabulous example of integration, of different partners coming together and being able to overcome some of the challenges like the bureaucracy, but also sharing of data. So when we're sharing that information, can we include those elements too? Because I think it will enable us to take it to the next level, as well as demonstrating that we're delivering.
Thank you. Ken, did you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. I'm Kim Shuttler. I'm the VCSE lead for West Yorkshire ICB. Brilliant to see the paper, Anna. I think my point builds on Councillor Hinchcliffe's point about the boring stuff, and that, actually I do think that we would have significantly exceeded the numbers that we're seeing here today if we'd have managed to get some of that resolved at an earlier stage, particularly in terms of the funding flow and the timing around that. I think what I hear from my VCSE colleagues in places that there's been quite variance across our 5 places as well. So there might be a really good learning exercise that we could facilitate together to just think through, what is in our gift, because I know a lot of this wasn't in our gift in West Yorkshire at all, but there might have been some things that were in our gift that we could make sure that we capture to maximise impact going forward. And I guess I'd just echo sort of the point that Anna drew out and about the short-term nature of the funding, and it pains me actually to see like the amazing stuff that is just getting going, and having run and established many services historically, you always know that sort of 6 months in, it sort of goes and the data starts going up. So it's really sad seeing some of the schemes winding down, losing actually, ironically, some brilliant staff. So so the more that we can continue to sort of lobby for that point, Mayor, the better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, yes. Councillor Sarah Courtney from Calderdale Council, lead member for Generation and Transport. I suppose it's that clarity around the accelerator funding, still waiting for that. And just, I think, just sort of delays and uncertainty around funding, as you've said, Kim, is just really difficult, especially for sort of smaller organisations. We know that those small organisations are really good at getting into those people who are the hardest to reach, but they're also most at risk because they're quite fragile, because they are quite small. So I think that's a real, and while we, and in Calderdale we're particularly got a very good relationship with our VCSE organisations, and we're trying to build the capacity in those organisations, but it's really difficult when when the funding is just not quite there. And I think it's like we're still waiting on funding from the current year, and then not knowing what's going to happen in the next financial year as well. Just need to sort of anything we can do to help government get that moving as well would be really helpful. Thanks.
Yeah, you want to respond, Tracy?
And I think you're absolutely right that when we've got good programmes, good people, and then we're just waiting in a hiatus, then we could lose them, and then we have to re-recruit. It just seems so inefficient. So I'll take that action away, and we'll write to government and press them and try and get a reply as soon as possible, because, like you say, we've got to keep them.
Thank you for that. So, Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's worth pointing out it's not just about recruitment. It's also about when those staff members have built those relationships with individuals that are very difficult to reach in the first place, and then the funding is withdrawn, and then those jobs are lost. It means that those individuals, their trust has gone in the system entirely, and they might not re-engage again. Thank you.
I think that's such a powerful point. We know that the VCSE is often created, small organisations emerge from where people feel let down or failed by the way that services are organised, and they have to do things themselves, and then create an infrastructure for that around a charity, and that degree of trust and confidence that they can bring to communities who feel left behind or unable to access us, because it is us, isn't it? It's us who creates the services and make it difficult for them to access rather than us to reach them. So we need to find a way of doing that. And I was thinking from that bit of the conversation, there's probably 3 or 4 things we'd want to reinforce. The first is that, you know, the knitting matters, doing the professional processes and the things that can get decisions taken and then implemented in places, that needs to be good. And when you've got national funding and national pilots that, you know, just by their nature sometimes override that in the first instance, doesn't mean it has to be like that forever. So those professional processes are right. Secondly, as we get into mainstreaming this and planning together and budgeting together, it needs to become part of the planning cycle, and we need to commit resources and capacity and policy towards it. And in doing so, we need to just learn some lessons from what we've done so far, pick up the points that Fatima's making around, you know, is there a minimum offer and is there flexibility to recognise the differences in different communities. So that's really, really helpful, I think, bit of conversation. But let's get into the places now. Councillor Courtney, I'll let you come back.
Yeah, sorry, just another quick point really, and I think, you know, exactly what you've said, you know, is absolutely right, and it's about that whole picture. So right from the, you know, the sort of the small organisations, whether they're, you know, based in communities who can get people's trust, up to our level, up to the combined authority level and beyond, and about everyone working together. So it is the health partners as well, and how every strand of what happens at the combined authority is really vital for that, including things like transport. And I know that, you know, obviously we're involved in the you know, sort of transport pilot, the confidence pilot, but actually making sure that people can get to their training, their employment, their health appointments and stuff, because that not being able to get somewhere is just such an immediate barrier, isn't it? It's like if you can't. So I think it's about really, really looking at the joined up nature of it all is so important as well. Thank you.
Thank you for that reminder. I mean, I always struck in my career that when you have a conversation with the public about the NHS, you usually end up talking about transport at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, we now have access. You want to
We
say
do.
something?
I just want to say thank you, team, squirreling in the background, making sure that this could come up on the board. But I think it's really important that we've started this dashboard. And like I say, not everything is there, not all the detail. I've asked for, you know, what year is this? Is this, you know, 24, 25? Who is delivering, you know, trying to also, as we go forward, get to a more granular understanding across the region. But I think this is a good start. We've started at least. So I don't know if you want to speak to this. Anna, do you want to speak to the slides? I mean, I know you talked us through it, but if there's anything you want to pull out that we need to know at this moment, but to say that this is just the beginning.
Thank you. Yeah, so in essence, I suppose the dashboard here shows some of the figures that I've just gone through, but I suppose it's evidencing that capacity and the scale of the work that's happened in such a small amount of time. The numbers that are presented here are just from April 2025, so you know within the financial year of delivery, and obviously I suppose this is only the start of it, and the numbers will grow. So we'll keep that updated, and happy to take feedback again from other members. Perhaps outside the meeting on other data that they'd like to see. We've got a huge amount of data behind the scenes, getting ready for that evaluation. So we can do deep dives into different things within different areas.
I'm particularly interested in those not in education, employment or training, so young people. So the number of people supported into work by Healthy Working Life, the target was 517, but 598, who are they? What type of work? Where from? So we will hopefully, as we develop this dashboard, being able to click into that and to get more granular detail, because what we want to do is also escalate the stuff that's really working and learn from the stuff that's working, and then where it isn't across the region, roll that out there. So I think the total number of people supported across Healthy Working Life, nearly 8,000. Is that Connect to Work, or is that just us, or is that other programs as well? So whilst there's something on the board, I think the team are now going to use this to really get into the data. I wonder if anybody has anything that they'd like to say or would like to see from the dashboard.
Councillor Courtney wants to come in, I can see, and then Fatima.
Yeah, just I suppose it's great, and I think this is probably what you were saying, Tracy, is that it's great to see what's happened, but actually then to be able to use that information positively. So not just a snapshot of the things that have happened, but then highlight the gaps and what's working, what isn't working, then to be able to apply that to other areas. So I think it's great to see, but actually to have it as a useful tool that can then be employed, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima.
So I'm going to quote you, Rob, which is I'd really like to see evidence that we're not just hitting the target and missing the point. So a breakdown of the individuals that we've supported, but also answering the so what question, which is we might have supported them into work, but did they stay in work? And sort of, what was their experience? Was it, we keep talking about not just work, but good work. And sort of a bit more of a breakdown of that, because our aspiration isn't just to get people working, it's to get people working and to stay in work, but also to progress, because we're a region of opportunity.
Thank you. Right, I've got an avalanche of people wanting to come in now. So Councillor Brooks first, and then Tom, and then Kim.
Thank you. I think just to sort of follow on from that, it's I suppose like in terms of the methodology around it, if we could have like a shared approach of targeted support, because there's a certain envelope that we have, so like making it as impactful as possible. One of the ways is that we could look at the areas of multiple deprivation figures and target towards those areas, just to make sure that funding envelope is being utilised in the best possible way.
Thank you for that. Anna, did you want to come back on that point?
Yeah, just to clarify, so we do look at areas of index of multiple deprivation, and we look at the mapping and the hotspots across the region to make sure that we're targeting provision. I can see, local areas nodding already, but making sure that we're in those local community centres, where the data tells us that we need to be, and we've got data around that, and I think we've got over 40% within IMD 1 and 2 on the accelerator. It's higher on the Trailblazer, so we are seeing some differences between the different programmes as well, but we can pull some of that out definitely next time.
Thank you. We've got Tom and Kim, and then I suggest we do hear from the places, because there's probably loads of stuff in there that'll answer a lot of the questions.
Hi, I'm Tom Sedgwick. I'm the service leader for West Yorkshire, so part of the Department of Work and Pensions. I think it's to your point, Fatima. It's the qualitative, isn't it? People are unique, and we're starting to work with customers potentially in a new way. And I think there's a lot of learning from those case studies about where are the gaps in our services, where is more join up needed, and where is the duplication. So how do we bring that alive? And we can probably learn as service owners together in this space. So what is underneath this? Because it's clear, isn't it, from the quantitative data, something is happening positively here. So what is the learning and how do we grow from that?
Great, thank you. And if anyone wants to look at the website and look at the case studies that are on there in terms of the repository, you can see the kind of difference that we're seeing, also the areas where people are experiencing that duplication or some of those gaps. Kim.
So some of the feedback that I've had from VCSE colleagues have been about the minimum data set, particularly when working with communities where the trust is a huge challenge, and there's definitely been, I suspect, that the data would have looked quite different if some of the minimum data set had looked different. I think there's been definitely something about identifying specific individuals. That's been in sort of ethnically diverse communities, but also some of the organisations working with people with autism or learning disability. So I think that's something to reflect on and just think about what might we have captured actually if we'd have been been able to tweak that, or perhaps still get the impact data trace, Mara, but maybe been a bit more flexible thinking about some of the people that we're trying to reach. I'm interested in so with my day job hat on, we run 4 different employment services commissioned by different organisations, and they all want to measure different things. When you work in the VCSE, you have to be really good at doing that in order to get more money. So there's something about service effectiveness data, so how we actually knowing if we're maximising the resource and if it's any good to carry on. And then there's the impact data, and I think there's probably stuff sat behind there, isn't there, in terms of our retention type schemes working better than actual employment schemes. Where's the best bang for our buck in terms of investment in schemes? So I think that would be interesting to dig into a little bit more.
Thanks. Jen.
Yeah, just on the minimum data set point, because it's a really important one, and I think it reflects the nature of what we're trying to do here. We've got multiple programmes that are coming from different departments who have a different kind of starting point of what they're interested in and kind of what kind of data they want to use to kind of evidence impact in different ways. And that leads to then collecting different information. But the tricky bit of that, and the bit we're not content with, is that has led to the amount of data being collected in an interaction with an individual is enormous and can be overwhelming and off-putting. It hasn't been entirely, because we've got lots of numbers through. But what we're trying to balance is that need for as much information as we can so we can evidence the impact, really learn and evaluate these services, and then that kind of real off-putting nature of collecting that kind of information. And I think it's a really fair reflection that we haven't got that quite right. I think it's something that is under continuous review, and I do think this is a good, as we approach kind of the turn of the financial year and change into, we'll talk about work well in a minute, but think about how can we reconcile that again. It is a challenge because then it means new forms and new things, and we haven't, but it's kind of recognising we might not have got that right first time. We keep making that point back up to DWP, NHS England, the kind of different funders of these programmes, that needs to be reconciled. So it's not something that we're sort of unsighted on, but we can do more probably to look again at how we can, in our position, how we can reconcile that and continue to challenge back up. Do we need to collect all of that information? So thank you, really well made.
Thanks, Jen. Do you want to just remind everyone who you are?
Oh, apologies. My name's Jan Connolly. I'm Associate Director for Improving Population Health, and I work jointly between West Yorkshire Combined Authority and West Yorkshire Integrated Care Board on those building blocks of health, particularly on these programmes.
Thank you. So I think what we're hearing from there is this is really helpful. So numbers provoke conversation and give us a sense of some movement. What would be even better would be if it allows us to decide where we're on or off track in terms of progress, where the risks are, and what actions we might want to take here to accelerate further or manage some risks. We've heard a bit about the data issues and data quality. We know that we've got some emerging data on impact, which is incredibly positive. We want to poke that to make sure that it's right, because it looks incredibly positive, and we need to make sure that we're not got any duplication here. So some of those data quality issues are reflected in the paper. Also remind everybody that the paper talks about the evaluation work that's going to go on alongside this to demonstrate the impact that's been had through the programme. Right, we've got about 5 minutes each, I think, from each of the places now in terms of an update. That's a chair steer, if you didn't hear it. So we're going to hand over to Bradford first.
Thank you, Chairs. Matt Findle, Lead Officer Education and Skills, Bradford Council. I've noted the challenge. I do have a few slides, so I might talk quickly. Really pleased to be able to share some of the great work that's going on in Bradford through the programmes with you this morning. Just a sort of reflection I was having sort of yesterday, thinking about what we've been trying to do through Skills House in Bradford for the past 3 years, with support from combined authority partners, around integration of employment and skills budgets. It was interesting that you both mentioned integration when you were talking at the start. Healthy working life has really helped us. One of the things we're sort of keen to do is sort of integrate further with sort of wider public services and wider public budgets. Healthy working life has been really positive in terms of that, in terms of bringing us together with health in a way that we've never worked together before, and I was reflecting on that sort of as I thought about the presentation. And it's really difficult to quantify when you're talking to a minister, isn't it? But actually, sort of long term, we've got a strategic place board in place, looking at Accelerator and Trailblazer. Those sort of side conversations you have off the board lead to really interesting places, but again, hard to express in the sort of data in the slides. But I just sort of make that observation before I got into it. I'm so glad I didn't have to try and talk to this and we got the slides up. I think it's a really helpful slide that colleagues in the healthcare partnership have produced around the sort of the offer for Accelerator. So it just sort of shows the breadth of the set of programmes that we've got. So we've got on the left-hand side of the sort of main box, you've got the focuses of the programmes, the conditions that we're focusing on, and then the suite of programmes that we've got alongside that, sort of delivered through pillars 1 and 2. So it's colour-coded. So the red are pillar 1's for the health and care workforce, pillar 2 for the wider workforce. And then there's the digital therapeutics strand as well. I'm not going to attempt to talk to any of that in detail, and I noted the time constraint. I think it's just really sort of helpful to capture sort of the breadth of what we are talking about. In terms of the numbers, so this is the latest data that sort of was shared with me from the programme. So the chart on the left just shows sort of the sort of progression over time in terms of the number of people being referred in blue, the number that have started in orange, and the number that have completed in green. As the slide notes, there is quite a significant sort of delay between start and completion, and then sort of data lag in terms of getting the completions on. So at the moment we're showing sort of 61 completions for Accelerator, but that's from, we've now hit almost 1,100 referrals and over 650 people have started on the programmes now. I'll skip to the next slide. It's just, so obviously with this we're focused on the place-based elements of Trailblazer rather than the regionally coordinated elements. So Employment West Yorkshire, we've been running through the council through Skills House. We were fortunate in that Employment West Yorkshire, there was a previous iteration of that programme that we've been able to pivot and start delivery from day one because of the infrastructure in place through council staff to do that. And the sort of impact of that has been that we've been able to, as I'll show on the next slide, exceed all of our annual targets, apart from one at this stage in the year already. The VCS collaboration, we mentioned the boring stuff earlier, and it has been quite complex to mobilise a number of these strands. And the VCS element we didn't get up and running until just before Christmas in Bradford. We've got 32 partners working across this, so we've got 2 focuses, one through our community anchor networks, so the 12 partnerships there are developing hyperlocal plans that we're hoping will inform year 2 delivery, and then the other set of partners are delivering interventions focused on different inclusion groups, so young people, LGBTQ, etc. 11 of those managed to mobilise before Christmas, and the rest have mobilised this month. We desperately trying to get some of the data into the system, so the combined authorities data for that strand won't look too promising at the moment. We've got a target of 267 participants through that strand, and we're just over 100 now, so sort of comfortable that we will hit that by the end of the year on the VCS strand. Personal incentives, really pleased that that's launched recently around the M-card offer, and sort of had quite strong uptake from Bradford already, so that's really positive. And there's the travel training provision, a train the trainer type programme that's been commissioned for Bradford as well. It's just about to launch that we're really excited about. And we're ready to go with the employer strand as soon as we have everything sort of in place for that. Next slide was just quickly looking at their sort of performance against employment structure. I did just mention that on the annual targets we're actually ahead of all of those except for the one in terms of increased employability, but for that one we are ahead of where we'd expect to be for this time of the programme. So we haven't hit the annual target yet, but we're ahead of where we profiled to be. We're at 92% of that, and that was sort of midpoint in January. Just on Trailblazer specifically, we've hit 150% now of profile for that in terms of starts. Next slide was just quickly about the preparation for the launch of Connect to Work, which we're sort of keen to get going with, and hopefully in the middle of next month seems where we're going to land. We've got staff in place already, which has helped with our Employment West Yorkshire numbers. But really keen to get going with. They've been through the training on the supported employment programme. We're delivering the SEQF elements, or the two elements of Connect to Work, which I've been briefed on previously, particularly focusing on young people who are care experienced, young people who've been known to the justice system, and young people who had an education, health and care plan. But also we had a local supported employment programme in Bradford, so we're building on the learning and some of the networks we created through that. I think the more interesting bit, a couple of case studies in there. Particularly talking about individual, I'd just echo the point Kim was making before actually. Consistently across Accelerate and Trailblazer, the point about the minimum data set has been raised, and it has, particularly in my experience around Trailblazer, it's been autism and sort of people with neurodiversity that have raised that. This is an example of someone we did work with who had an autism diagnosis, had been unemployed since 2023 when they've been made redundant. They had been through a lot of bits of different types of support before. I think one of the things I was talking to the advisor that worked with Jay, one of the things they'd experienced was lots of different people trying to help, and I think one of the benefits of our approach, they've essentially had a key worker type approach. They've had consistent positive input to support them back to work. So we supported Jay to access a couple of courses and sort of through different application processes. As it says there, culminating in November when applied for and successfully got a role at HMRC and has been sustained into the year, so really positive. We had a keep in touch meeting sort of last week apparently, and he's really loving the role, so fantastic on a personal level. I did on the next slide just give an example of some of the work we're doing with an employer, although this is more through our community partnership rather than our employer engagement partnership. Around some work that Bradford Bulls were doing within their area of the city in terms of volunteers. Volunteering, I think most people appreciate, a really critical part of the offer in terms of supporting people who've not been working back into work. And so we sort of really see the link between this activity and getting back into work. And this was an exercise we went through, supporting them to increase the number of volunteers from the local community and sort of the benefits that are felt by the organisation. Just got a couple of other quick slides. Just reflecting on sort of challenges, highlights. I think a couple of these have been touched on, so I think the last point is around the boring stuff again. Accelerator obviously is beyond their control in terms of knowing what's happening with that, but obviously that programme is starting to wind up, numbers are dropping off in terms of referrals, and then the complexity we've had in trying to launch some of that. But highlights, as I said, sort of that great collaboration that I sort of opened with is really, really critical, I think. Again, sort of the point was made before about the importance of community-based settings. We're in, I think, 49 community-based settings across the city now, and actually in terms of engaging the client group that we need to work with, that's absolutely critical, being in a place that they would ordinarily be and that they trust. It just doesn't work trying to get them into a central location. And yeah, I think probably covered those other points in the rest of my slides.
Thank you very much for taking the steer, and thank you for the significant amount of work that went into the presentation prep and that's going on in Bradford. Councillor Hinchcliffe, anything you wanted to add before we move on to Calderdale?
No, I think it's it just shows, scaling up a programme quickly when you need to do that embedded work across the region, not just across local authorities, but within areas of local authorities, does take time. Therefore, that sustained funding and agreements over time will help get more people benefiting from this programme.
Thank you. So if people don't mind, I'm going to suggest that we take all 5 places and then get into any conversation, if that's okay. So thanks, Matt. Going on to Calderdale now.
Thank you, Chair. Grant Soames, Strategic Lead for Business Employment and Skills at Calderdale Council. Although throughout the presentation I do touch upon the data, in Calderdale we're taking this opportunity to tell a story about Healthy Working Life programme, the importance and difference it's made, and the work that we want to continue in the future. So on the first slide we talk about the reality and strengths of Calderdale. We're combining the strong community identity with deep inequalities and rising economic inactivity. Even though we are the smallest of the 5 local authorities, we have got the highest inactivity in West Yorkshire with 32,100 residents, 12,000 of which are on long-term sick. Only 16.9% of the inactive residents want a job at present, so that shows traditional support models do not reach or always resonate. I think the key thing here is with the whole place approach, how the Healthy Working Life builds on Calderdale's hyperlocal VCSE strengths. They're really well developed and embedded across Calderdale with some really strong VCSE partners. And that has really helped us to create and coordinate that place-based system with additional capacity. So we've got one pathway, we've got multiple entry points, and we've got some shared outcomes across the borough. I think some of the challenges, on the next slide, some of the challenges and what holds residents and employers back, it was really important for us to recognise that. So residents face multiple barriers, all of which have sort of been alluded to today, but the mental health needs, domestic abuse, neurodiversity, and the MSK pain as well. We've also currently got a fit note coach that reinforces withdrawal from work. So early conversations on adjustments rarely occurred prior to this programme. Some of our SMEs lack HR and occupational health capacity and struggle to support complex needs. I think it's worth pointing out that 9% of our business landscape in Calderdale is micro or SME businesses. Many residents in the IMD areas and isolated communities do not engage with the statutory services. So we've really worked hard on that element as well. And the current benefit system, the income and financial status prevent engagement. There is a reluctance to engage from people, and we came to it earlier, I think, from Kim around building that trust and then relationships. So that's been really key. So some of the, on the next slide, some of the impact and early evidence of change through the Employment West Yorkshire and the VCSE Trailblazer. I think it's really key to know, and I know Matt touched on it from Bradford, is these are the numbers that we're working with, but there is a much bigger number of interactions that take place and support and triage across the programme that we really do need to recognise. So with our Employment West Yorkshire, our local employment hub, we have got a target number of working with 336 residents. That's broken down into the 3 areas of who are in work, unemployed and economically inactive. And at the moment we've achieved to date 301 who have gone through programmes, and that's 90% of our total. I think it's key with Employment West Yorkshire this time that it's through 3 funding streams, so it's a combination of the Accelerator, Trailblazer and the UK SPF, which we are losing shortly. And we've got 11 outputs and outcome measures. Currently across them we're achieving 93.5% achievement across them measures. The VCSE Trailblazer, this is one of our real strengths. We've got 9 VCSE partners working on this programme with us, and we had an initial target of 89 residents, but given our challenge we've worked really close with our partners and we've stretched the funding as much as possible to ensure we can engage as many of these people. There's a real need for that, and today, since September, because of the mobilisation and getting it ready, even though we didn't start till September, we've already achieved 130 on programme that are across the priority awards and priority groups of residents. In regards to the VCSE Trailblazer, with the outputs and outcomes that are sort of predefined or predetermined measures for each local authority, at the moment we're achieving on average 86% achievements across all them measures. I think again, Matt touched upon it, and I'm sure it'll be same with colleagues from across other authorities. The case studies really do have that impact, and we've got some fantastic case studies that show how people have improved confidence, how they've returned to work, they've had job placements, and there's some of the other small steps of support which are so important. And we continue to share them stories over social media and across organisations to really engage with people as much as possible. As we move on to the Accelerator, this has been a really exciting programme for us. We've really started to see some systemic change with working with the GP alliances and getting the Healthy Working Life advisors on board as well to do that triage work. At the moment, we have got all programmes live. As it says at the bottom of the slide, we are unfortunately starting that demobilisation process, but we have showed people what is available in opportunity, and we don't want to lose that momentum and relationship. But at the moment, we have had 299 referrals, 157 of them were eligible, and 91 are on interventions as we talk now. Some of the sort of feedback and early evidence of change, employers report value of structured, impartial support, and that is really critical for our SME and micro heavy economy. And participants accessing therapeutic and employment support are doing that through fast track provision. They've shown better engagement and outcomes in work retention and health. I think the sustainable benefits across the system for closer working with other work and health providers, building on relationships between Accelerator, Trailblazer and the Employment Hub, that one system. And then early evidence shows reduced absence, stronger retention and prevention of avoidable inactivity for those in work. I think that's sort of a really strong start for Accelerator, given that we didn't have a strong starting point for that, but the way we've mobilised, looked at some programmes that we could enhance, but new programmes that have been brought on board as well, and with two of the VCSE partners. And then just to finish with, just wanted to touch upon the Healthy Working Life Supported Employment. As a council, we are not doing the direct delivery. It is going to be through the regional delivery model, but we have ensured that that's aligned to a number of our key strategies, some of which are noted on the slide. We've really started to drill down into our priority groups and our priority areas, and that integration with some council services and wider partners is really important, especially that frontline employment services. And then as a council, we really want to lead on that place-based integration, that collaboration, that contract management and funding coordination as well. So we've now got a really strong base to grow from. The importance of that continued funding, how it works as that single system, will really ensure that we can continue to show the importance of this funding and the difference it's making. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Councillor Courtney, anything you wanted to add?
No, thanks. That's well covered. Thank you. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you. Let's go on to Kirklees.
I'm Councillor Jane Ryler, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Education. And I'm pleased to be presenting here today. Unfortunately, I haven't got a Kirklees officer by my side.
You'll be brilliant, don't you?
I'll be brilliant. So if we could just move down to slide 3.
Sorry, because they're in a pack. Is that the right one?
That's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So, good morning. This is a brief update on the Healthy Working Life programme in Kirklees, covering both Accelerator and Trailblazer activity as a combined offer in the district. The Accelerator and Trailblazer programmes continue to make strong progress across the local work and health agenda, even though their metrics are not fully aligned and therefore some reporting appears different between the two. Delivery across all HWL programmes remain robust with consistent engagement from priority cohorts and a steady rise in referrals into work and health pathways. Early indicators suggest that participants are already experiencing improvements in both well-being and employability. The VCSE sector is playing a crucial role in this progress, with community-based support, confidence-building activities and volunteering pathways all showing positive outcomes and reliable throughout. The high level of interest is reflected in the more than 90 applications received for the VCS grants. Participant profiles differ across two major programs. Accelerator is currently supporting a balanced mix of residents, 28% in work, 26% unemployed, 24% in work but on sick leave, and 21% unemployed and not seeking work, while Trailblazer is engaging those furthest from the labour market, with 60% inactive and 40% unemployed. Data is now beginning to flow through more consistently, although the presentation reflects information only up to November 25 due to the usual reporting lag. Importantly, Trailblazer activity is strongly aligned with areas of highest deprivation, as shown in the IMD decile analysis, confirming that support is reaching the communities most in need. Taken together, these developments show that cross-programme alignment is strengthening, the system is becoming more coherent, and the combined effort of statutory and VCSE partners are driving meaningful improvements for residents. Thank you. Early EQ5D results show a mixed picture, with around a third of participants reporting improved well-being and 2/3 showing slight deterioration, which reflects the complexity of the people we are supporting and highlights the need for sustained intervention. The demographic profile shows that Accelerator participants are predominantly white British, with strong engagement from younger adults, while Trailblazer is reaching a high proportion of Pakistani origin and white British residents, and has particularly strong engagement from women. Health-related barriers are also becoming clearer, although we do not yet have this information for Accelerator. Trailblazer data shows that mental health conditions, the musculoskeletal issues, and learning difficulties are the most common challenges, demonstrating that the programme is successfully engaging residents with significant barriers to work. We'll finish again with a case study which exemplifies the work that we are doing. So we have a mum here, discovered the Wellness Works poster at her GP surgery while feeling isolated and low after a back injury kept her off work. After a self-referral was made, engagement began with her designated key worker at Ravensthorpe Community Centre through a series of gentle supportive sessions, and was able to open up and have conversations about her health and well-being. With kindness and patience, she was supported to take small manageable steps at her own pace, helping her slowly rebuild confidence and reconnect with others. Hearing about a level 3 education and learning course sparked a sense of hope, and she felt ready to enrol, a major milestone after months of poor health and low moods. The experience was so positive that she shared it with her daughter, opening the door for her to seek support too. Her progress inspired her daughter, who had also been struggling with her mental health and feeling disconnected, and had previously attempted suicide on 2 separate occasions. Seeing her mother renewed hope, encouraged her to join Wellness Works too. She now plans to start the same course on her 19th birthday and has already begun volunteering at community events. So this case shows the real human impact from the work that we are doing across Kirklees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryland. Let's move on to Leeds.
Good morning everybody, I'm Gillian Wallace, I'm the Head of Employment and Skills at Leeds. Just going to give you a very brief overview of what's happening in Leeds, which will include some of the data, some of the highlights, some of the challenges, and also some case studies about what the impact that the work is having. Leeds is a huge place, and we've got a huge programme here, and we haven't quite mastered a way of getting it all on one slide. We've tried. Some of the best brains at the ICB and at the local authority have tried, but it always looks incredibly messy. And the same with the data. We're absolutely rich with data, and we've not found a way of getting it all on one slide. So we have accelerator data on one slide and then trailblazer data on another, but we will continue to work at that. Overall, across all strands of the programme, we've had 363,651 people that have engaged with support from the place-based allocation, and this is still growing. We're still seeing a really strong demand. The funding is being used to support 30 projects overall, and that's a really large breadth of projects, all of which are collecting the data that's required by our funders, but also data that they need in order to tailor their support. Sometimes there's questions and information that they need, particularly in the health world, that allows us to ensure that the support is relevant. We've identified and worked with over 94 peer networks, so they're organisations in Leeds that are delivering support to people, to employers, and also to practitioners to make sure that we're continually improving and continually bringing all the organisations along with us. So that very much speaks to the importance of integration of this approach. And something that's not on these slides, but I think is worth flagging because it is incredibly important, is that we've had conversations and interactions with over 300 employers about this agenda and how can they work with us on this. And that's not just about creating employment, but that's also about how can we support them in being better employers and helping them retain the talent that they've got at the moment. So as a result of that, we are in 30 community-based venues, we're in job centres, and we're also in people's workplaces across Leeds, so we're really stretching across the city. We are data rich. It's not easy to summarise it. There is a lot of data available that sits underneath these slides, and we'd really welcome the opportunity to work with you as to draw out what data is going to be most impactful in this space. I do want to flag that sometimes the impact data in a 12-month programme can be incredibly difficult. So I think it's really important that we draw out what does good look like and what does progress look like in this space, and how can we build in the measures that allow us to demonstrate that. One thing the data is presenting for us is that we are seeing a lot of people with a lot of complex issues, and the forms don't always recognise that. So we have people with multiple issues. So people may present with one health problem, but that can lead to something else, and we're very much seeing that across all the strands of the programme. I would like to highlight, however, that poor mental health is absolutely huge. And on the Trailblazer, the Employment West Yorkshire strands alone, over 83% of the people that are on that programme identify their mental health as being the main reason why they are out of work and the challenge that they have getting back into work. A couple of things that we've learned. Not everybody that we engage with at the beginning of the programme stays with us on this journey. And I think that's really important, and there can be a lot of reasons why that happens. Sometimes people want to access support, but things happen that mean that they can't continue on that journey. And I think there's going to be a lot of value in year 2 understanding what that might be, because that might speak to future interventions that we need to look at as well outside the scope of this programme. We have found that the majority of the people on our accelerator strand of the programme are in work and already engaged in a health pathway, and therefore they're very keen to engage. They absolutely see the benefit of staying in work, and that because they're already engaged in health, they see this as part of their journey. Whereas we are finding that people that are out of work, particularly those that are classed as economically inactive, are more difficult to engage and do require a community approach, and that's very much where our community partners can add value to what we're trying to do. Right. On to the next slide. What we wanted to show here was just a broad approach to how we've positioned this in Leeds. We are combining this funding with other activity that already existed in the city so that we can have a bigger impact and a bigger reach. And that involves some council funding as well, and leaning on other council services. So that might not be within the scope of this funding and this activity, but is so important in order to ensure that we get the reach that we need. Whereas this current delivery is very much about people that are out of work for health, and there is other reasons why people are out of work, and we think it's really important that we don't take our eye off that. And what we are finding is, particularly when we're working in deprived communities, we need to have that open door approach, and that's very much where we focused our support. Next slide is just to highlight some of the highlights, and it's very similar to other local authorities. As a result of this funding, we've very much been able to work in partnership with our VCSE organisations, but also as an employability and employment and skills lead, really understand the health world and really start to speak the same language, really ask, what do you mean by that? What does that mean? How does that work? And have those open and honest conversations that allows us to bring these worlds closer together. We've also used this as an opportunity to link up closer with the skills agenda as well. And actually, how can we use skills funding, particularly adult skills funding, to help support people's journey into work? And how can we use that to help influence provision? So that it's not just about giving people the technical skills that they need, but are we addressing some of the health issues that people may see? And that's where particularly well with tailored learning in Leeds, where we're developing real pathways with progression and speaks to career development, not just getting people into any job. If we can build the skills early, we can build on that when people are in work. And we've also used this as an opportunity to link very closely with our probation services, but also the youth charities in Leeds. A lot of the challenges we're seeing in this space is engaging people, and sometimes waving the flag of employment isn't the best way to engage. So can we use some of our more informal approaches, some fun activities, particularly with our young people, to engage young people, to support them, and then introduce employment and progression as a result of the fact they're already engaging. And we're seeing some early successes with that approach as well. On the next slide, I just wanted to highlight one of our VCSE provisions, because we were absolutely overwhelmed by the innovative nature of some of the ideas that our VCS that came up with to engage people and do things a little bit differently. We're funding 17 programmes. They're all very, very different. But this was one that really stood out to us because working with an organisation called Trust Leeds that are very much embedded in communities within Leeds, we trialled a programme which was not about employment but about self-employment, and recognising that some people with health conditions work may be a step too far with where they're at the moment, but actually we can still make them economically inactive by supporting them to become self-employed. And so we funded Trust. We ran a 12-week programme which made up of some mentoring, additional drop-in sessions, very much looking at people's business plans, very much looking at what they would need to make their idea a business. And we're very pleased to say that all 12 of these participants stayed with the programme, have developed a business plan. They had a fantastic array of ideas, from developing gaming, so some of the skills that people had was gaming, so how can we commercialise that? How can we make that into a product? Right through to selling hair extensions to people in their local community. So all 12 participants have graduated. They've all very recently delivered a pitch to stakeholders, including the programme funders and including some investors. And they're now all moving ahead to take that business plan and develop that into reality. So we're hoping we'll have some businesses within the next couple of months that we'd be delighted to kind of share with you. On to the next slide. We also wanted to capture what people thought about the programme. It's all very well me sitting here and telling you about what's happening, but we're garnering a lot of user feedback. So these are the words of both our partners that are delivering on this programme, but also individuals that are benefiting from the programme, about how it is changing their lives and how they are finding a real benefit in what we are doing. And I'll let you read that at your own leisure rather than reading it all out. And on the next slide, I just wanted to talk briefly about some of the challenges, which are not different from what's already been mentioned, but I think are worth highlighting. One of the things that's really apparent for us in Leeds is that even though these programmes are focused on economically inactive, and very much that is the policy intent, I think we do need to flag that we have a strong demand from people that aren't technically economically inactive. They would be unemployed. And they still have significant barriers to work as well and still benefit from some of the approaches that we are doing at the moment. So I think there's something in how do we not let people's economic status be a barrier to the support that they want to receive. And often people don't know. We're finding a lot of the time we are engaging with people, we are offering support, and it's only as you get further into that journey that technically they're not economically inactive, but the issues that they are facing is exactly the same. And people have mentioned the paperwork and how the need to collect data can sometimes prove a barrier. And that's something I think we all collectively are aware of. And Jen, thank you for the feedback that you've given on what we can do about it. That would be greatly appreciated. Short-term funding leads to uncertainty, and uncertainty leads to mistrust. A lot of our providers have said from a user voice perspective that people will say, oh, well, that sounds great, but is it going to be around? You know, over the last few years, they've seen a raft of provision come and go, and it is a barrier to people actually engaging because they don't know that the journey that they start on is going to be something that's available to them more long term. And finally, the next slide is just to highlight some of those challenges around the paperwork and some of the comments that are coming from our young people. And one thing I wanted to highlight on this, which was something I hadn't considered till we did our review, is when we are working with some of the most vulnerable people and we present them with this paperwork and we ask these questions, it builds up mistrust straight away. And actually what that means is some of the data we're getting back might not be strictly true. And one of our partners pointed out that particularly for some of our young people, when they come in, it's a good day. So they're rating their health as being really good and their mental health as being really good. But that's not the true picture. What we see is a much, much bigger picture that we can't always capture in paperwork and in questions. And I just wanted to end it on a positive and a case study which I believe highlights not just the big impact of this programmes, but also some of the smaller wins that we can have. So when Sam started on the programme, he was lost and unengaged. He was referred by the job centre, who were struggling to get him to engage and attend appointments. He was very anxious and he was very shy and he wouldn't actually attend in-person meetings first of all. But after a while, he admitted that he was concerned because he felt he was addicted to gaming. And just didn't feel that he could do anything. We identified very quickly that he would benefit from some counselling, but he didn't want to do that. He felt that was a step too far, so we had to take real baby steps with Sam. We had to introduce very small goals, and some of that involved him leaving the house for the first time. So we took him to Tropical World, and we tried to build his confidence. We tried to build his confidence with using public transport, so that was a major step because we got him on the bus, something that he would not have done straight away. And we helped him plan his route, and we had such a lift when he actually achieved that visit to Tropical World, which has got nothing to do with employability. It gave him such a boost that it allowed him to engage in a different way. He then agreed that he would start with counselling, and he started his sessions now in the new year, and we're really starting to see the impact of that, and we've gone from baby steps to big leaps because he's getting the support that he needs, but most importantly, he recognises he will benefit from that support. So Sam has come off his device, he's come out of his bedroom, he's bought himself a drone, he's going outside, he's using skills, and we're starting to introduce employability support for him, and we're confident in the next few months we'll get some really good results with Sam.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks, anything you want to add?
Thank you. Yeah, I think Sam really reflects some of the constraints that the funding package has, because obviously Sam isn't in employment yet, but there's going to be multiple Sams out there, like hundreds possibly of Sams that need more than a year, more than that 12 months to see any impact. So I suppose, like, from a political ask, I just ask that you make that really clear to government, Tracy, to make sure that, you know, like, the the people that we work with have such complex and varied needs, and it's a long time to unpick a lot of that and to build up people's capacity and confidence and everything to make it so that they can enter the world of work. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but by no means least, Wakefield.
Hi, I'm Sharon Marshall. I'm Employment Strategy Manager for Wakefield Council. Are our slides up there? Oh, sorry, there they go. Yeah, so in Wakefield, we've embedded Healthy Working Life within our Step Up programme because it was a brand that the local residents understood, and we could then expand and try and keep a cohesive ecosystem, but with multiple entry points so that people could start wherever they needed to start. Just like all the other local authorities, we're very much community based. We're in libraries, community centres, job centres, coffee shops if that's what the resident feels more comfortable with. But we are out there with local residents in the areas of greatest need. So just like everybody else, we also looked at the indices of deprivation and where the greatest need was. So Trailblazer and Accelerator are obviously key funding streams for us. So what we try to do, as I believe, I think we've gone forward a little bit, that's it. What we're trying to do is hide the wiring. So I've seen a lot in different papers about the employment system being difficult to navigate. It would be impossible for a resident to navigate it. So we have a main entry point, and we will then, on the basis of what that resident tells us their needs and their status is, direct them to the right programme for them, but they won't really know that they're being sort of separated out, if you like. They just get the support that they need, and that's important. I think the biggest new part for us of Trailblazer is that it's allowed us to engage better with our VCSE. We knew that we were trying our hardest to engage with economically inactive residents, but that our progress was limited. And we recognised that probably most of those residents would rather engage with VCSE partners. So we've engaged 2 partners who work on a social prescribing approach. They have health and wellbeing conversations with residents and introduce the benefit of work to their recovery and to their wellbeing. And then we'll obviously take the social prescribing approach of finding the right support for them. We've also added into that 2 counselling organisations, one who does individual counselling and one which is group-based, so that the social prescribers have direct access to some support which they might normally have to put people on a waiting list for. And that counselling is specifically around helping people understand what they can do and turning the can'ts into cans. And that's been incredibly successful. So we also work in partnership on Accelerator with public health colleagues, looking at the Healthy Workplace Charter and also the workplace health checks that have been introduced. So that's the overall approach. When it comes to the learning from Trailblazer, what we'd started to learn on Employment West Yorkshire is that needs of our customers, not just the economically inactive, but as Gillian said, the unemployed as well, are far more complex than they have been in the past. And the voluntary sector partners have also reported that actually the people they're engaging with have got much more complex needs than they anticipated. And bearing in mind they work with these residents on a daily basis, I think that's quite important for us to recognise. So the counselling services are very much in demand, but the data sharing agreement for us is forming a huge barrier. And we are, our partners are reporting quite a lot of people who are coming forward for help, but then refusing the help because they won't sign the agreement. So we're actually now asking partners to record
the reasons that people don't sign up for support, so we can give you that rich data, and we can get a real sort of feel for how big a barrier that particular issue is. But what we are finding is where people do engage, there is some speedy progression to employment support available. And it is quite often the funding barriers that cause the barrier to progression, because demand far outstrips the capacity that we've got. So that's there. And on the other side of it, we are getting reports that around about 60% of people who are engaging with the social prescribers are quite quickly saying, actually, I do think work might be for me. So I'm delighted with that, because, you know, these are people who have been told for a long time that they're incapable of work, and probably have hidden away because they think they're shirking, they don't want to be scroungers, all that sort of thing. So we've had a lot of positive learning. The big challenge, apart from the data sharing agreement, is really maintaining our ability to keep that no resident left behind approach, and that's because of the focus on inactivity. And as Gillian quite rightly pointed out, those people who are unemployed and need support have got exactly the same needs as the economically inactive. And for me, the big risk is that they become economically inactive, and it just seems criminal that somebody should have to become economically inactive to get support. So I think that's something that we're all agreeing on, basically. So on the accelerator programme, our accelerator programme is focusing wholly on people who are either in employment but off sick, or in employment and worried that they may have to go off sick because their health is deteriorating. So we are working alongside public health colleagues who are promoting our Healthy Workplace Charter, and we're also sort of doing some cross referrals with the workplace health check. So sometimes they call us in, sometimes we call them in. But what we're finding is quite interesting, in that a lot of employees will not come forward to us when we're within their employer's premises, but they will self-refer afterwards. And that unfortunately tends to lead to those employees not necessarily going unemployed, but leaving that employer for another job because they're too scared for us to talk to their employer. But where we manage to persuade people to allow us to advocate with the employers have responded positively. And so I think what we've learned is there's definitely a need for the programme, and there's definitely a will with some employers to keep their loyal employees, but we definitely need to do some work with employers and the employees to try and promote that thing, that this is it's a joint relationship. So, and I think we could do with that programme being a little bit bigger as well. At the moment, we've only got one employment advisor on it, and there's plenty of capacity there for many, many more people to get support through that. So on the numbers, which is the next slide, we are confident that we're going to hit our targets. That is very much a contractual slide. We are happy that even on Employment West Yorkshire, where we thought we'd struggle with the inactivity numbers, that we are going to hit that target. In terms of the overall impact, I mean, as you can see, the job start target there, these figures were as of 31st of December. We've now overachieved on the job outcome target, and we are sort of looking quite intensively at the increase in employability. That number is very much more an evidence collection number rather than it's not happening. It's just taking time for the evidence to be input into the system, basically. In terms of the quality of the job outcomes, we did do some external research a year or so ago that was then backed up last year, and that showed that 47% of the customers that we had on the programme, obviously a previous programme, but we don't see any reason why that will have changed, were still in employment between 1 and 2 years after they'd left the programme. So we're seeing very few people coming back to us for further help. My worry is that because they didn't like the help that they got, it's actually that they didn't need it. We've got it right first time. So I'm delighted with that. On the VCSE programme, we only actually mobilised that in September. So people have only just have only been recruiting for a few months. So we were at 97 at the end of December. We don't see a problem in hitting the target for engagement. What we are having a slight challenge with is identifying true progressions, because what we are finding is that on that programme in particular, residents are having 4 or 5 different points of progression. So they are following a process, and they may go and get a referral into mental health services. They may go to adult education, and then they'll go into voluntary work. So there are lots of things happening, and what we're trying to do is unpick that so we know how many unique residents are getting the benefit, and then what those benefits are. But as of 31st of December, there were round about a dozen who had already accessed the Step Up Employment Support part of the programme. So I'm happy that there is progress. It's going to be interesting when we get the stats together, and that is something that we're actively working on at the moment to make sure that we've got those stats. So finally, on Connect to Work, we're ready to start effectively. The staff are in place. They have been since October. We've worked on basically copying what we did on the IPS drug and alcohol programme, because that's been seen as a huge success. So we are now based within our clinical partners, which are the MSK teams within Wakefield. We've picked that group because next to mental health, it's the biggest group. So we want to make the biggest impact. So basically we will be starting next week as though Connect to Work is in place. And then we will take whatever action is needed paperwork-wise, according to when the Connect to Work contract actually comes on stream. But we have people who need help, so they will get that help. And that's my ultimate priority for Wakefield. So there are a few things that we need to get up and running. The IT system is very much under development, and the marketing is undeveloped at the moment, but it's a minor risk in terms of getting people onto programme. MSK services have got 2,000 referrals a month. We've only got 20 places a month. So I think we should be able to find the numbers from that. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Smith, anything you want to add?
Yeah, Councillor Duncan Smith, Wakefield Council. Yes, I'd just thank Sharon for her presentation. I just want to emphasise the strength-based approach. I think it's a really positive thing. I'd be interested to hear what colleagues have got to say about the data sharing agreement. I understand it's about 6 pages long and needs signing in several places, and if we're losing people because of that, is there something that we can do about that together? Thank you.
Thank you. So I've let that drift a bit in terms of timing, because I think it was important to hear from everybody, and there's a lot of rich material in there, lots of similarities, some differences. We will get through the rest of the meeting by 11 o'clock. The last 15 minutes was for information, those papers, so those will be for information. We don't really have much time for a conversation now. I was going to suggest that we ask the programme board to pick up some things that we've heard, and what I think I've heard that they might want to help with is that the strength of partnership in local places is essential for this to be successful. and the trust between the different partners needs to be maintained during this period of change. So making sure that we do that. Secondly, there's been barriers to increasing the pace on this work, which we've identified. So how do we overcome those, and how do we make sure that that pace and volume continues to be at the right level during this period of change? Third, we need clarity on the money, any flexibility around the use of the resources, and continuity of the resources over a period, and how do we make sure we can do that in the current financial context? Fourth, these are quite complex arrangements in different places. We can't fit them on a slide. When we do, it's 12 point or whatever it is, so it's tiny. How do we simplify that complex landscape for people? And people have given good examples of that. How do we compare the different places to pick up good practice, and also whether people are moving as fast as they could if they can get rid of some of the barriers that others have helped with. And then finally, I think recognising the gearing here, and what should the gearing be? If there's people who are in a pool that we're trying to work with, if they then access, they are referred into services or access those services, how many are eligible, how many then make it onto the programme, how many drop out? Have we got that gearing right? Are each of those ratios right, or are we seeing too many people drop off, not enough people access? But we've seen some really good assurance, I think, around the focus on areas of deprivation, the focus on mental well-being, the focus on MSK services, the two biggest things that prevent people from work, their mental well-being and their physical ability to do work. So really, some really good stuff there. Good to hear from everybody. And if we ask the programme board to pick up those specific areas, and then some of the knitting again on things like data sharing, that would be helpful. We might also ask our colleagues in the AI Academy if there's any benefit in this space for things like ambient voice technology and artificial intelligence, looking at some of the information that we're getting through from these complex arenas. Okay. Councillor Courtney, last word.
Just a very, very quick point. We've talked a little bit about how we target, targeting different groups and some of the major barriers. And I just wanted to do a little shout out. I know that if Moses Crook was here from Kirklees, he'd be championing this as well. But just in terms of really thinking about care experience people, we're all corporate parents, and actually that's a group of people who really, often come up in stats as being at risk of sort of economic inactivity. So I just think if there's a way of just making sure that we sort of really think about how we can make sure that care experienced people are really thought about in this context as well, I think that would be really good. Thank you.
Good. So I can see lots of nods around the room for that, so thank you for that. Okay, so the next item on board members, there's a recommendation that to ensure that we have the richest possible picture and the ability to act collectively, that we have 3 additional board members. So from Sport and Physical Activity, the Yorkshire Sport Foundation, from one of our major employers, Abraham Moon and Sons Limited, and from Further Education, representative from Colesdale College. And I just wanted to make sure people were content with that, there were no objections. Excellent. And one of the things we want to do from diverse colleagues around the room from their different perspectives was just to get a perspective on opportunities, challenges and work. Kim, you've been invited to give some reflections. Given the timing, if you can be as powerful and succinct as possible, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a few slides, if that's okay. So I'll whiz through some of these actually, because the best thing is that I've heard so much around the table today, showing the love for the VCSE. And I suppose what I'll focus on is like, how do we take some of that love forward in a meaningful way that delivers maximum impact? So it was just a reminder, and this this slide does include Craven, but we have got a lot of brilliant VCSE organisations in West Yorkshire. I would go as far as saying we've got one of the most rich and diverse sectors in the country, and we don't always create the right conditions where we're absolutely maximising the sector and what it can deliver. So next, please. Sometimes I think because the sector is so diverse and broad, we forget the different types of organisations that we've got. So out of those 14,000-ish, 95% of those will be small or micro. Those are the organisations that I think that we're talking about the deep trust, working with communities, either communities of interest or in specific localities. They're the small micro organisations that are amazing, doing the health inequalities work. They're the organisations that have been mostly targeted by the Trailblazer work. But you do still have in West Yorkshire locally based, very specialist organisations that are delivering specialist employment support and have done forever. And I think sometimes that's forgotten in the space of when it's looking at commissioning the sector and what it can deliver. And I suppose what you have in those providers is organisations with deep experience, but a level of flexibility and agility that isn't afforded perhaps to statutory services. And then the last one I think is an important one to get onto opportunities. I co-chair the Integrated Neighbourhood Health Board. There's massive opportunities around that. And of course what you have is locality-based community organisations. One was mentioned there in Kirklees, who are addressing that holistic need for people at the same time through different funding streams. So really by investing in your community anchors and boosting up their capacity around employment support, where there are clear pathways to addressing other things, doing a lot of that pre-employment holistic wellbeing stuff that actually really probably shouldn't be funded through employment monies, but it's making the jigsaw make sense. And you've got a lot of long-standing commissions that are coming from lots of different places already, like the NHS, like local authorities, money coming from the DWP. Some of our biggest challenge in the VCSE is knitting all that together so that you're not getting the duplication or indeed sometimes competing for referrals. Next, please. So when we're talking about like impact data, I think what I wanted to draw attention to is like the impact of the stuff that's delivered in the VCSE is pretty clear and has been clear for a long time. And some of these schemes are will be lost if the accelerator money goes, but also it's important to say that this delivery isn't covered in the Trailblazer, so it's service capacity and impact that will be lost if the accelerator goes. And there's other services that are high impact and delivering good return on investment that are funded from sort of vulnerable sort of streams elsewhere, whether that's NHS or local government. But really powerful example here, it's a Leeds-based organisation, about some of the work they're doing around retention. So I suppose what I'd say is it's been brilliant to hear everybody talk about how important the VCSE has been in their local delivery. And I mean, that's been like, it's been talked about across everyone. I don't think that's necessarily reflected in the investment, proportionate investment. And that is because how sort of funding gets allocated. But sometimes it's interesting to think about what are the outcomes we're trying to achieve and what would give us the best return on investment to deliver those outcomes. And that's not to say that isn't statutory services, it's just taking a little closer look at what our most effective work looks like. Next. This is another one. This is another kind of scheme that sort of tends to be funded year on year. It's a DWP scheme. Embedded in NHS Talking Therapies, it really talks to the power of embedding VCSE sometimes within statutory services. So you saw previously it was an 87% sort of success rate, this one's 68%. So actually I think they're pretty clear in terms of the impact that they can achieve. And I suppose this one speaks again to like the different types of funding streams that are out there and how do we look at the ones that make the biggest impact and scale and spread those. Next, please. Bradford talked about this one, and I think it really just shows how really these organisers. This is Trailblazer money. So Matt talked about this already, but I think it's good to see the different communities that are being reached with with very, very small pots of money. And I think the thing that they did in Bradford, which I think I absolutely love, and really requires people to let go of a little bit of traditional sort of mechanisms for distributing money, is participatory grant making. So going to a community and saying, right, we want to achieve this outcome, and it's a bit of a dragon's den type situation with that community saying, this is how to do it. And it's the community themselves that essentially vote for what will happen. So I think the results of not just in this space of participatory grant making in Bradford are really impressive. Next, I think we'll skip on that one. That was a Kirklees example and this one as well. So sorry, I didn't know that other people were sort of sharing those slides. But I guess I'm going to end on this one, which I think is lovely. I'll just ask you to click on the YouTube clip, which just really shows the creativity. Oh, it's like 1 minute. It's 1 minute. It's 1 minute. And then we're... All right, okay. And it will, and maybe we'd like to invite people when they come to meet the Healthy Minds apprentices who are giving sort of co-design tips on from young people on how to stay well in work.
Thank you, Kim, for racing through that. I think it's really helpful grounding for the next two items that we really do need to get to. So apologies for racing through that, because we've got the Work Well programme, and then we've got redesigning employment support, and it seems to me that the evidence around the contribution and effectiveness of the third sector in those spaces is pretty strong. So thank you for that, and apologies for rushing you. Jen, do you want to...
Thank you. So I'll take the paper as read, and particularly for time here. Work Well is being rolled out nationally. It's been running in about 15 places so far for just over a year now. And we need to learn from those places as we look at the rollout. The funding will be allocated to ICBs, and it's really trying to continue to recognise the role of the health service in this space. So it's kind of saying, we know there's a real need to get health partners around the table. We know we have to do some more stuff differently in this space. And it's also giving us a programme by which it thinks we can best deliver that. So it's kind of just bear in mind those two things when we talk about the programme. It's also just that commitment for getting us in that space. We're fortunate in West Yorkshire that we've got this space, and we're already committed to that. That's not necessarily the case nationally, which is why this is a national rollout. So whilst we might think, well, we're already doing that, well, we are. So we've got to learn from what we're already doing in both of those things, in both of that partnership space and in that programme delivery space. So our recommendations say we should bring Work Well into this family, into the Healthy Working Life board remit, and at local level as well. You should bring Work Well into that space. And it's also giving us a little bit of time to get the programme design right. So it's not expecting us to be delivering from April, which this time last year we were kind of in the space of trying to get Accelerator ready to deliver. It's saying you need to be delivering this from November. That presents a bit of a challenge to us, because there's a gap from what we're already delivering and what Work Well needs to deliver from November, and a funding gap in that space that we keep highlighting. But it does also then give us time to pause and reflect, because I've heard this continual challenge between what we're trying to do at a strategic level, what people are experiencing in terms of the delivery, and there's a gap in getting that quite right in how we commission, what we measure and monitor, how we design those services to be the best they can be in that space. So I think we should take that opportunity and give ourselves time to pause and reflect. Technically, Work Well is looking at a kind of a model that brings health and work coaching to the centre, and might run for around 8 weeks or so with somebody, where they kind of get a health and work coach support to find out what the right interventions for them are. So it's a kind of it's akin to a social prescribing model, in that it's trying to fund that prescriber, not necessarily the prescription, the kind of thing they need to go and access, which our Accelerator has been funding. So again, there's a bit of a difference in what this funding is trying to be directed towards. But I suppose the recommendations highlight what I've lead to what I've tried to highlight here, which is we should bring it into our existing partnership. They want to see a work well partnership. We think this should be it. And that we should take the time that we're inherently given through when the funding comes to play to get the design right based on what we've heard from the experience to date and the fact that we've had to do a lot at pace. And while we don't want to lose the momentum for our services and population, we do need to do a bit of pause and reflect on the design of this to get it right for a longer period. And that's the other thing to note, is it's a 3-year programme, which gives us that little bit more headroom. I think that's probably all I want to say.
Really helpful and really clear. Thank you for that. So we are being asked that we note the rollout, that the Healthy Working Life Board agrees that oversight of work well should be added to the remit of this board, that the existing governance arrangements in each place include work well, and that we do that bit of work on what the operating model might be in the future to get this right. So firstly, any questions or comments around the proposition, and then can we agree those recommendations? Fatima.
Supportive of the recommendations, just 2 potential suggestions. One is that we take the learning and use the opportunity to make sure that we address some of the sort of risks and challenges that we've heard this morning. The second one, and I won't be in a room without asking this question, is there an opportunity to use this as leverage regarding prioritisation of certain groups or communities most in need? So while we're doing that reflection process, is there an opportunity to do it in the West Yorkshire way rather than the nationally mandated way?
Any other questions or comments? Do you want to reflect on that at all?
I think we're still awaiting some further guidance on exactly what's expected. We've got a prospectus which sets out an overall approach, and we'll certainly take those suggestions in. Thank you.
We will continue to recognise the agency we have in taking the work forward. So can I just check that people are happy with the recommendations, including that they'll do it at place? Yeah. Councillor Hinchcliffe? No. Yeah, happy?
Yes, we're approving.
Thank you very much for that. Now I know Michelle wants to make sure we have a conversation about redesigning employment support, so I'm going to hand over to Michelle.
Thanks very much, Chair. I'm Michelle Burton, Head of Employment and Skills. So this paper sets out a proposal that review of employment support is carried out in West Yorkshire. The intention being to reflect on the successes that have been built in West Yorkshire over many years, but taking the opportunity presented particularly by the review of and reform of national systems and employment support landscape, but also taking on board what all local areas have said really powerfully about the fragmentation in employment support. And the huge effort that goes on among all stakeholders around this table to bring together a myriad of funding streams. So an opportunity to reflect on the strengths that we have, attempt to quantify the impact that we collectively are having. Again, that's been raised as a challenge by the Mayor and by other people around the table. And also consider other approaches in other parts of the country and what we can learn here in West Yorkshire. So there are 3 recommendations in the paper. One is to seek your views on carrying out that review, which would go forward to the Combined Authority Board, to get your steer on its scope, and to get your thoughts on governance and chairing arrangements as well.
Thank you. So those things are set out in the paper. The scope is in section 3.10, for example. And so can we just take questions and comments then? So Councillor Courtney first.
Yeah, thank you. I think that it's really important that we get local representation. Is so important in terms of sort of the steering group to make sure that the review is grounded in the lived experience of places and is informed by the depth of local authority experience in delivering the employability support. I just think that that's a really crucial, just making sure that we've really got some sort of local voice in there. I think, and we've heard about a lot, from Kim as well about the VCSE, the importance of the VCSE in this. Yeah, okay, thank you. I think that's pretty sums it up.
Thank you. So in terms of the steering group under 3.11, real desire to have local representation, just temperature in the room would suggest that that's definitely supported. Fatima.
Firstly, Councillor Courtney stole my thunder because I was literally going to say the same thing. But in addition to that, just reflecting on the themes you've heard from the places, there was a clear reflection about the role of employers in supporting people that have got into work to stay in work and to understand how to support and line manage people with complex needs. So I just wonder whether there's an opportunity to incorporate that into the scope. And then obviously as the chair of the WICA Digital Inclusion group, I'd really appreciate some thought being given to digital exclusion and also some of the learning from that incredible group of leaders in that forum.
Thank you. And in terms of, I might look at Peter here, in terms of sort of evaluation and evidence, do we want to engage with the universities individually or collectively to help with this?
Sorry, Peter Glover, Economic Evidence Manager at the Combined Authority. Yeah, that's something we could look into.
Thank you. Come back, Councillor Courtney, and I'm going to bring Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, so just as well, I think around, talking about the fragmented system, I think it's not, and it's really important, all the local stuff and the regional stuff, but also, Tracy, if you can lobby in terms of the national welfare, reform changes as well, because I think, there's reform is needed in order to reduce structural barriers and to align incentives and for residents and employers and local services and stuff. So I think the local is really important, but actually what we can also ask for on a national level would be great. So we can roll you out as our local superpower.
Thank you, Councillor Hinchcliffe.
Yeah, I think my understanding of this review is it's about the plumbing of how we all work together to deliver for people locally. And therefore I wouldn't want it to be too broad and therefore achieve nothing. So I think this is about how it works, isn't it? And a lot of people we've been talking about, businesses for example, might not be that interested in how we all work together through data sharing agreements, blah, 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 blah. So I just wonder if this is the right place for some of those people. I think this is about us getting it right so that people don't see the wiring and actually can provide their input when we've managed to make sure it all works well behind the scenes. So just a plea to stay on the mission, really, of what we're trying to achieve here. And then just a question about who is going to be the impartial national expert. Impartiality is such a hard thing to achieve, I find. But I just wondered, because obviously there are some people in this space who we all know we've worked on the Future Ready Skills Commission and stuff, who know this back to front, really. So I suppose it's those kind of people, is it, rather than somebody who needs to learn, because this is a complex area, and therefore I think it needs to be somebody who understands the complexity of it and doesn't have to learn. So I don't know how you're going to recruit that person. Thank you.
Okay, I know Tracy wants to come in at that point.
I think that's a really fair point, but I think we haven't, whilst we are doing amazing stuff, and we've evidenced it today, we are still behind the national average. We have the opportunity to take a system-wide approach, and we shouldn't miss that chance. I think businesses are part of that story, because at the moment, talking to businesses on the business board, their fear of taking anybody potentially with a health condition is so profound. We do have to find out, and they have to enable us to understand what would help them. But also I think this board could be an opportunity for us to see best practice elsewhere where we haven't done that. Where are the innovations elsewhere that are going to give us those great opportunities? And just these numbers are just, we've got to do something different. We've got to get that gap to close. And at the moment, what we're doing, that gap will never close. And those 113,000 people just need a new approach. That is a deepening of what we're doing. And like you say, making us more efficient as a system. But also, there is no, we can only learn from people who are outside, who are going to be the employers, potentially.
Councillor Hinchcliffe, did you want to come back?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with all of that. I think what I'm keen to make sure we're focused on is we've heard a lot of expertise in the room from local authorities today, and I want their voices to be heard when we're actually designing how the system works, because we've heard a lot about, where the agreements are, It's going to take us time to get through this process on that. Is a data sharing agreement too long? All that is engineer. It's the basics. We need to make sure that together we get the basics right so we can actually achieve those numbers quickly. Because if we don't get the basics right, then that's not going to happen. So I just want to make sure that review answers this question.
Thank you. And while you've got the microphone, before I bring Councillor Brooks in, there's a question in here about political leadership and whether there should be political involvement in the steering group. What's your view on that? Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, it seems it's a governance question to me, really. I suppose, like, in an effort to gain a bit more clarity for the combined authority, it might be worth seeing how other areas are doing it and what's working for them. And I suppose, like, maybe a place for user voice, or maybe including disability confident government area. I don't know exactly how that side of things works, but yeah, I agree. There needs to be some space for local flexibility built into it as well, because each area is so very different and so very similar, but we need to be able to flex around what our residents need as well. So it can't be, what we come up with can't be too prescriptive as well.
Thank you. Michelle, any reflections on that as I go and chair my all-staff briefing and leave the rest of the meeting to Tracy to close down?
No, we'll take all that back and reflect it. That's really helpful. Thank you. And I would suggest that, well, so a similar paper will go forward to the Economy Committee, and then the next step would be to co-produce sort of a project plan so that across stakeholders we've got a shared understanding of next steps. But thank you for your comments.
Super, thank you so much. It feels like we've got to a position there. Brilliant. So we've moved on to item 10 and 11, youth employment policy and economic evidence and insights. We were hoping to take this as read, if that's okay. And any questions from this is really helping us with insights and data. Any questions on this item? No, thank you, Peter. You've sat through the whole thing, and nobody has asked you one question. But thank you for the hard work that you've done on that to basically reaffirm the labour market challenges impacting all those young people and the economic evidence and insights. Just to put us in context in West Yorkshire, and obviously we can then compare ourselves with the rest of the country. Councillor Brooks.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I suppose, like, there's often a gap between what the funding aims to achieve and what young people actually need. So I'm wondering how we can square that circle the square the circle with that.
I think that's an essay question, isn't it? We'll have to take that away, I think, for maybe an item on another agenda where we can look at that in a little bit more depth, because that's quite a complex issue with many opportunities for change there, I think. So, okie doke, item 12. Any other business? Sorry, so sorry, Councillor Courtney.
That's fine. Just a couple of very quick points. So great to see your inclusion on the Alan Milburn review. I think that's really good and good for us locally as well. But just again, and the same with everything really. It's just about that whole system approach, integrating all of the different elements: the health, mental health, skills, community support, local authorities, transport, everything just to sort of make it to get the best out of that for our young people, is just making sure that everything is as coherent and joined up as possible. Be really good, thank you.
Thank you. And a couple of the high-level takeaways, that young people on EHCPs then graduate to become to go on benefits as an adult, and then they don't feel like they'll ever work because they feel there's been no intervention. And also fit notes have been given to patients, but there's no plan then to get people back into work. So there's a couple of items that I think that came out of the last couple of meetings that we've had, but it's very rich and very varied. Councillor Smith, we're slightly over, so I keep talking. I'm so sorry, I shouldn't be talking. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. concern about the growing number of 16 to 18-year-old NEETs. It's a bigger concern for local authorities. In Wakefield alone, this has increased by 25% in a single year. It appears to be driven by a lack of suitable provision. We're aware that young people who are NEET at 16, it's far more difficult to re-engage with them when they get to 18. So it's that sort of that gap. And
Here to that. And also we are pressing government because currently it's 19. And so they fall through the gap, and then it's very, very hard to engage. But again, another question for the agenda needs. Okay, thank you all so much. So the next meeting is scheduled 1 till 3, the 30th of March, and the venue to be confirmed. So please do offer immense value in holding meetings in venues and places across the region, so please do offer up if you would wish. And in accordance with the board's terms of reference, additional private meetings will be scheduled 3 times a year between public meetings to be used at, obviously at our discretion, and we'll confirm if the board will accept the next private meeting, but we will share the information on that. But that's where so much of the work gets done, and the programme board as well. Yes, Councillor Brooks.
Thank you. Can I just request that wherever the meeting is, that enough notice is given as to the location, because last time I wasn't able to attend due to other diary commitments.
Yeah, so you need time to travel.
A lot, yeah, because I don't drive, so it would have taken me over an hour to get there, and I'd sort of scheduled it in as though I was here. So I had something just up the road, 10 minutes away, and it was, yeah, it weren't going to work.
That's very, very good to alert us to that, so thank you. Okay, thank you all so much, and I think we are seen by government as a really mature in this relationship, so I'm hoping that we can really turn the tide on those people who really should and want to be in work and to be well. So thank you all so much for your presentations. Thanks, Dan.